welcome back to Book and Prejudice. My name is Mar, and today I'm going to be talking all about the books that I've read in the first quarter of the year, aka from January until March. So as always, grab yourself a drink. Today, I got myself a coffee, and let's get cozy and let's talk some books. Now, my first quarter of the year was not the best number-wise, but it definitely was good quality-wise. I think there were a lot of 5 and 4 stars in there. In total, I read 5 books, and the reason why I say it's not the best in numbers is normally I read about 3 to 4 books a month, depending on the width, and this wasn't the case. But again, this year I feel like I'm gonna give myself a lot of grace because I am planning my wedding. I'm starting a new job. I had my bachelorette party, so you know, there were a lot of fun things that happened that maybe took away from reading time, but I generally don't regret any of them, so who cares? It's gonna be like that until at least September when I get married, so we're gonna have to rally. We're just gonna have to persevere. Anyways, the first book that I read was actually an audiobook, and it's I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. I don't have it, so I'm just gonna put it somewhere in here as always. And I absolutely love this book so much. I don't think I can explain. It was a 5-star, obviously. I think that Jeanette McCurdy, being the narrator, really enhances the experience. You can even tell there's moments in which she feels almost choked up, and it's so heartbreaking and heartwarming to see everything displayed and everything explained through her eyes, because this is something awful that happened to her as a kid and as a young adult, and it's great to see how she has persevered, how she has continued growing. So I really enjoyed this audiobook. I thought it was really interesting. I will say, I'm usually more of a book person than an audiobook person, but I think that listening to this book versus reading it changes a lot your experience. Because I feel like when you read it, there's more room to interpretation. You know, sentences can be read differently from how they were meant to be read by the author. And she doesn't give you that opportunity. You know, for you, like, there is one option and one option only. This is what I wanted to say. And it's quite clear. Also, because she's an actress, that really comes through as well. So that was an amazing book that I read. Listened to it at work actually while I was doing like my admin bits, and I really enjoyed it. It was hard at times to listen to it as well. I will say, like, I couldn't put it down. Like, I've listened to 2 audiobooks and they have both been fantastic. But yeah, I also never read biographies. I hate biographies and autobiographies. I just, you know me, if there's not like a little bit of fakeness in it, a little bit of fiction, I don't tend to like it. But I think that this was just heartbreaking, beautifully written. It was really well written as well. And it was a very good account of her life. And I think that also the title is very punchy. I'm guessing she did that on purpose. But it was a great experience. It was very sad at times, so it comes with a million trigger warnings. So please read those. But I thought it was really good. I personally really enjoyed it. I gave 5 stars. The next book that I read, I have them all over, so apologies, was Babel by R. Kwon. Another 5-star. Listen, if you know me, I have been wanting to get this book for so long, right? I wanted to read it when it first came out. And as we all know, my TBR shelf is psychotic. So I didn't buy it. And I got my best friend Celia this copy for Christmas, right? Black edges, like a Waterstone special edition, signed. And I kept looking at it and I was like, I could just get her something else and keep it for myself. And Greg, being the saint that he is, was like, don't do that. Because he got this for me for Christmas this year. So I read it in January, and I read it pretty freaking quickly as well. I think I read it in like a week, and it's a chunky boy. I annotated it to death as well. This is very much annotated to death. And it basically tells you the story of Robin, who is a Cantonese-born Oxford student, and his journey through Oxford, from starting and being so excited to kind of realizing his purpose there may not be as honest as he would like. And then, you know, a lot of things happen that make him realize that he no longer wants to support this organization. And I thought that that was so beautiful. First of all, translation, because that's what he studies in Oxford, is something that I am so passionate about, because I speak a few languages and it is very complicated for me to speak them and to translate them, because I always tell my partner, there's no word for this. Like, I cannot tell you how I'm feeling because there's no word for this. I'm gonna tell it to you in Spanish and then we're just gonna figure it out together. And vice versa in English, vice versa in French. Like, it's just hard. So I'm very passionate about the fact that translation never is correct. And if I can read the text in its original language, which by the way, in this page you'll see how hypocritical that sentence is, but if I can read it in, like, if it's an English book, I'll read it in English. If it's a Spanish book, I'll read it in Spanish. If it's a French book, I'll try to read it in French. And that's because I just know that the nuances of the language are not going to translate well. And this freaking book, talks about that all the time. Also, the author is really cheeky and I really appreciate that. Sometimes she just puts things in a different language and you just have to figure it out. And I really appreciate that because she did not try to translate it. She was like, no, this is a conversation, like this sentence will be put in Chinese. And sometimes like she has like the little asterisk there, but you know, sometimes she doesn't. And I was like, yeah, pop off sis, I get it. So yeah, this is a great criticism of colonialism and imperialism and how, in this case the UK, but let's not kid ourselves, most Western countries took and took and took and took and never gave back anything in return. So if you're someone that's interested in that and then you sprinkle a little bit of fantasy, you're gonna love this book. This is probably going to be one of my favorite books of the year. And like, I read it in January, so like, imagine how good it has to be. I will also say, without spoiling, right, so I'm not gonna give spoilers, the ending, like the last 50 to 100 pages, just get yourself a quiet room and a lot of tissues and maybe a big bottle of wine if you need it, because it is heartbreaking. I was in tears all the time. I was looking at my partner and I was like, what is happening? Why is this happening? None of this makes sense. I don't like this. Make it stop. So yeah, definitely recommend reading this, especially if you're as annoying as I am about translations. So yeah, little coffee break. The next book that I read was Hellbent by Lee Bardugo. And I have problems with this book. I don't have problems. I have bad memory. So I could not remember what the first one, which was Ninth House, was about, because it took 2 years for this book to come out after I finished it. So for the longest time, for like about 100 pages, I was having to stop and having to Google things and figure things out because I didn't remember what was happening. That being said, once we got to the ending of this book, I thought it was really good. Like, once I remembered who everyone was and what their role was in the previous story, and that was great. But I couldn't remember what happened to, what's his name? 1 second, please. I can remember what happened to Darlington. I couldn't. I was like, wait, well, who was Darlington again? It's one of the main characters of the book. And because it had been so long, and again, I have such bad memory, I didn't remember. And also, potentially what would have been smarter is what I did with Akatar, which is I reread the whole series ahead of the latest release. But I didn't realize that this book was coming out when it was. So I didn't prep for this book coming out. I just went to the shop when I found out that it was coming out and bought the copy. And then I started reading it immediately. So that was bad planning on my side as well. Again, the book itself is fantastic. It's a great thriller, mystery, fantasy, crime, murder book. There's a lot of themes in here. So I definitely would recommend reading it. I would just maybe wait, because I don't know if there's a third one coming out. I should probably figure that one out. Anyways, I would wait and then read all three when they come out, because there so much happens that you need to kind of remember. And I didn't remember, and then that hindered my experience with this book. That being said, I still gave it 4 stars. I thought it was great. I thought it was really fun. The next book was the other audiobook that I read, popping out somewhere in here, and that is Cultish by, this is where I have my notes by the way, by Amanda Muntell. I gave that a 5 stars because if there's one thing that I love, as you know from Babel, is the nuances of language. And this book was a recommendation that I got from the book Lil, and she also listened to the audiobook, and it's all about how cults use language. So I learned things like thought terminating sentences, which are kind of like boys will be boys, or it's always been this way, or it is what it is. And that is the type of language that cults will use very often. I also learned about Tupperware. I didn't know Tupperware was an MLM scheme, like a pyramid scheme. I didn't know that. I thought Tupperware was a brand that we all use. But no, that's how Tupperware parties came to be. So, that was very interesting for me to learn. It also kind of delves in both like actual cults. Like there were some bits of this book that were very graphic and triggering, and I was just like, holy crap. Like, cool it down with imagery, because that's a bit too much for me. But at the same time, there were cults like Peloton or Soul Cycle or CrossFit. And she's explaining how, although these may not be cults in the more traditional way of the sentence, they certainly behave like cults and are cult-ish. That's the name. And I thought it was really good. I actually messaged my aunt, she's an English teacher, and I was like, you need to read this book. You need to get this. I don't care when you have a second to read it. This is something that you need to know. It was so fascinating. I kept talking about it for ages. Like I now, every time someone speaks, I'm like, are you recruiting me for a cult? Because also, side note, I am quite gullible. Like if there's an internet scam, I've fallen for it. Like the only reason I still have some money in my bank account is because my partner, Greg, before I click on anything, I'll send it to him and he'll be like, no, that's a scam. Delete that email, Mar. No, that's not, no. I thought I won an air fryer from a competition that I never joined. So that's where we are at. So, if you're like me, you need to learn how to avoid being a cult, because there was a story. Oh, this was very terrifying. Sorry, this is a bit rambly. But she was talking about how she and her friend somehow ended up in a 3-hour Scientology recruitment thing. I was like, what the hell? That would happen to me. Like that's the kind of thing that I can see myself being a victim of. So, it was important for me to read this book. I think I learned a lot. Also, it was just fascinating. The narration was really good. So yeah, it's hard for me to find audiobooks that I like, but I've read 2 this quarter that were fantastic. I'm so happy. And the last book that I read, and I also did a vlog about this, is Almudena Grandes' Inés y la Alegría, Inés and Happiness. So, I have thoughts about this book. I gave it 3 stars. I would have probably given it more if it was shorter. This book is really big. Like it has 800 pages. The font is small and the paper are thin. So that's already like not great for me, but because I have bad eyesight. But also, realistically, it makes sense why this book is so long. It narrates the whole of the Civil War in Spain. That was a very long process, okay? Like it took a long time. And the return of the one. I personally liked it a lot, but I would have liked for it to be shorter. That's why I gave it 3 stars, because it took me so long to read. Also, it was quite sad for me to read because I feel like, and I said this on my vlog as well, I feel like these are the events that happened in my grandparents' life. So every time something terrible would happen, I'd just be like, that happened to someone that I know. Like, I know someone that's lived through that, and that would upset me a lot. So I had to put it down and pick it up again. In fact, you can tell how destroyed this book is because I brought it with me everywhere because I knew that I couldn't read it in one stand. I think with hindsight, I should have had 2 books and like alternate between them. But, hindsight, 2020. Mark, blind as heck. So yeah, I really liked it. If you want to learn more about Spanish Civil War, read her. This was very interesting. There's 4 more in this series, 5 more in this series. So I'll be trying to make a big gap on those throughout the year. I'd like to get at least half of them read, but of course, they are a bit intense for me, so I need to pace them. Which is why I'm not going to be talking about what I'm reading in Q2, aka I'm a month into it. I'm not going to talk about what I've read already, but I will be talking about the things that I'm going to be reading. Which is this pile over here. In no certain format, okay? Because I'm not sure what order these are going to come out. I'll start with the one that's not here actually. I'm reading The Serpent and the Wings of Night. Pop it over here somewhere. That's my treadmill book. I like to read in the treadmill because I work out for 30 to 40 minutes every day. So I read there. And I like it to be in the Kindle because I'm quite clumsy, and this, like, no, that just wouldn't happen. Like, I would fall. We don't want me to fall. So I'm reading on the Kindle. So I always try to have like a Kindle book that I'm reading for that kind of situation. So I'm reading The Serpent and the Wings of Night. Holy guacamole, that book is very good. My colleague recommended it to me, and she was like, if you like ACOTAR, you're gonna love this. If you like The Hunger Games, you're gonna love this. If you like vampires, you're gonna love this. And I was like, check. So I am around 15% in, which is like 85 pages, by the way. It's like a big, thick boy. It's 85 pages. I'm really liking it thus far. And yeah, that's what I'm currently reading. I'm also reading something that's also here, but when we get there, we get there. But I am reading that one on my Kindle. That's like my treadmill book. Would like to read that one, and I heard there's a sequel. So we'll probably be reading the sequel too. Let's be honest. Then I'm also going to be reading, do you remember what I said about translations and me not liking them? Right. I bought Brandon Sanderson's new book. I've never read Brandon Sanderson. I just bought it because the cover, stunning, gorgeous. And it's called The Braid of the Emerald Sea, I guess. I can figure out what this is called in English, given that it is an English book. Don't know what it is about. I bought it because this edition is purple. Stunning. Look at that. It has like weird this. It has photos? Wait, I didn't know it had pictures. You know when they say don't judge a book by its cover? I did not go to school that day. I only got this because it was pretty. But also, I've been wanting to read Brandon Sanderson for so long. And the reason I haven't is because he has so many books that I just don't know where to start. So I thought I'd just start with this new series. So that's what I'm going to be reading at some point this quarter. Just gonna drop them there. The next book that I'm going to be reading is The Atlas Paradox by Olivier? I thought it was Olivia. Olivier. This girly. I read the Atlas 6 when it first came out. Loved it. And I gifted it to all of my friends, and I think only one of them has read it, but she's also reading now this one, so this is gonna be the next book that I read after I finish the one that I'm currently reading. Because, listen, it's a fantastic story. It's very fun. It's like dark academia, scary vibes, magic, science, which I'm not a big fan of science, but I like a sciencey aspect to a book. So I'm gonna be reading this one next. Also, fun fact, I'm also going to be reading the last one. I basically bought 2 copies, one for me and one for my other friend Celia, who's also reading them, for the Waterstone Science Special Edition for the last one, which comes out in January of 2024. So I pre-ordered that this week. Just like full on was like, yeah, I'm just gonna get it. And I was like, do you want one? And she was like, yes. So if you ever think that I, could work smarter, not harder, that's me. I knew I was gonna forget. So now we have 2 stunning copies that are gonna be coming to us. Also, they're very pretty because they're like blue, and this is blue as well. So I'm very excited for it to get in. Okay, I'm gonna be reading oh my goodness me. Sendlin's Ascents by Josiah Bancroft. Now, my bridesmaids for my bachelorette gifted me a ton of books, all wrapped in paper with a little clue. So this one is: a honeymoon gone terribly wrong, ascend the tower to retrieve the wife. That's what they said here. And then they also wrote on the other side, fantasy, steampunk, science fiction, adventure, high fantasy. And then because it's a series, they wrote book 1 of 4. And I love that. That is such a me gift, honestly. So it was really cool that they gifted that to me. I have a feeling that I'm really gonna enjoy this series, if I'm honest with you guys. So I really want to read the first one sooner rather than later, because it sounds very interesting. It narrates this life of Thomas Sandlin and his wife, who go on a honeymoon and the wife disappears. Thus, the retrieve the wife did. So he has to enter the Tower of Babel to find her, and that's all I know, and that's all I want to know. I've heard fantastic things about this. What's her name? Peru's Project, Regan. Oh, fantastic recommendation from her as well. So it's the kind of book that I don't think I would have picked up on my own, but I've always had in my radar that I wanted to read. So I'm very excited and happy that I'm gonna be reading this sooner rather than later. Oh, this is the book that I'm currently reading. It's called The 7 Moons of Mali Almeida. For those that are kind of newer, my fiance gets me the winner of the Booker Prize every year for Christmas. This was the one that booked in 2022. The one that won, not the one that booked. The one that won in 2022. So he got it for me, and I decided to wait until spring because the cover looks quite springy. So I'm currently reading it. I'm about 168 pages in, like a bit less than halfway. I would love to finish this by the end of this week because it's very good. I will say it is very similar to Elif Shafak's 10 minutes 38 seconds in This Strange World, which I absolutely adore. So if I would recommend reading this one before you read the other one, because I am finding that this is good, but I like the other one better. Also, the Booker Prize is known for wanting weird books. So if you're not into weird books, then I don't think you're gonna enjoy this book. But I love a good weird random thing. So I think that I'm really gonna like this. So I'm gonna be reading this the rest of the week and hopefully be done with it soon. The next one that I'm going to be reading is The Priority of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. Greg got me this because I've been wanting to read this one and the prequel that just came out for ages. And I haven't read it. I don't know why, like I just didn't want to buy it again. The problem in here, which we do not talk about, we ignore. It was quite evident that I couldn't get an 800-page book, but one day Greg was like, I'm gonna get you 3 books, pick 3 books, so I picked one of these. And I'm very excited to read it. I think it's gonna be great. I'm excited to read the prequel as well, but I'm also quite happy because apparently this is like an actual standalone. And I love that you barely ever get fantasy standalones. So I'm really excited to read it and, you know, have that on my knowledge brain because I've heard fantastic things about it. I'm not sure what it is about, so I cannot even give you a review, but I've heard really good things about it. But there's like dragons, as you can tell. And I love a dragon story, and I haven't read dragon stories in ages. So very excited to read this. And then, last but not least, I'm also gonna be reading The Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi. Again, Peru's Project, Regan, and the book Lil. If they recommend a book, I am going to read those books. Those are the two, like, so easily influenced by them. They do their job right, that's for freaking sure. So, Peru's Project read this, and she said it was fantastic. She said that it felt like a campfire story. And also there's pirates and female pirates. So in my mind, I'm like, count me in, sign me up, where do I sell my soul to? So I'm very excited to read this. It's about Amina al-Sarafi, who is a retired pirate who has to do one last quest. And I feel like this is gonna be really, really, really good. I will probably do a vlog about this one actually, because I feel like it's gonna be really good. Also, I love how beautiful it is on the inside. Like, look at that. Maps. A good map, man. That's the way to my heart. And, octopuses. Oh, this is gonna be great. So, I'm gonna be reading this myself this quarter. Again, if I don't, that's fine. I have like 35 million things going on this month. So, just this month. My June is looking empty, but it never stays empty for long, so. So yeah, I hope you guys like this format. I think that I like doing it more quarterly rather than monthly because I sometimes don't finish even a book, as we can tell, in a month. So much less enough to make like a long video. So I think I'm gonna just pile them up in quarters, and this kind of also will start my spring series, which I'm very excited for because I'm a sucker for those like intermediate seasons. So I'm a sucker for autumn and I'm a sucker for spring. because I just love it. I'm gonna be very honest though. Greg and I spring cleaned the whole house in April. The whole freaking house. And the temperatures dropped from like 15 degrees to like 2. That same, like we did that on a Saturday, and that Saturday evening the temperatures dropped. And I'm like, and they haven't gone back up yet. So I know we're in spring, but like it would be amazing if the weather could join me in that feeling. You know, because that's selfish. They're just being selfish at this point. But yeah, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys liked it, like, subscribe, all of that stuff. And I will see you guys next week. Bye bye!